Hello and welcome to Learn to Become Radio. My name is Aaliyah Clausen and I'm one of the team members here. And at Learn to Become, we help people who are drowning in the details of life create simple systems so they can do what matters most. And in today's podcast, one of the simple systems we're talking about deals with streamlining our digital input, whether that be social media or text messages, emails, all the digital communication. And I'm excited to share a few simple principles with you because I know that our digital input is going to look very different and very unique for each person. We all have different work and family or other social interactions that vary widely based on each person, stage of life, and things like that. And even though we're going to have very different apps and communication preferences, things like that, what I love is that the principles that we teach here at Learn to Become can fit every single situation because we encourage customization to meet your own needs and the specific things that you're going through right now. And we also are going to talk about a few STEP principles. STEP stands for Steps to Everyday Productivity, and it's our signature program here at Learn to Become. So if you're interested in diving deeper into STEP principles and learning how to create these kind of systems in all aspects of your life, not just technology, I'm going to be linking a few relevant links and things like that on our show notes page at the bottom. And you can find that at learndobecome.com/episode 311. And we're just going to jump right into the podcast now. So we had somebody actually recommend this topic a long time ago, and maybe by a long time ago, I mean a couple months ago. And I was asking for some podcast ideas and suggestions. And one person said, when I first started going through the STEP program, I realized I had way too many sources of digital input and I needed to streamline those. And they asked if I could record a little podcast walking through how somebody could evaluate their virtual inboxes, especially hidden ones along with the obvious ones, to help hone in on the purposes of each inbox or of each communication method, and then working to cut them down so that way there's not so many messages coming in over and over and over again, day in, day out. So I thought I would just share a little process that I've personally gone through. And then, of course, if you have any extra insights or anything that you've done that's been helpful, you're always welcome to share those in the comments section. Again, that's at learndobecome.com/episode 311. So the first thing I personally recommend doing is doing a mind sweep, which is where you write everything down that's in your mind / on your phone or computer. You're going to go through your apps, scroll through the different pages of apps on your phone or iPad or computer, whatever that might be, and you're going to look at your most commonly used sites, social media, work communication, etc. Basically any place that you frequent online, or maybe places that send you emails whenever something new hits some kind of inbox on a website where you have to log in. Anything you can think of, you're going to write down on your mind sweep, and you can write this down physically or digitally, whatever you prefer. And the goal is to gather as many places that have inboxes as possible, and this might be a gradual process. You might need to keep this kind of an open loop and an open collection process as you start to identify all the different forms of communication, because there might be some that don't give you notifications all the time, or that might not be super obvious, and you may notice them and they might pop up as the days and weeks go on. So I think that's the key, is knowing that this isn't going to be a one and done super fast thing for a lot of people, because especially with having so many apps and so many websites it seems like everything has an app or a website and a login at this point, and it can feel kind of overwhelming to try to streamline those. But I think if you can be open to the fact that it's an ongoing collection process and a process of identification, it makes it feel a lot less overwhelming and nebulous, because you can know that you've done as much as you can for the time being, and then you can move this to your either waiting list for general items, or if you have a little projects list that has waiting projects / in progress projects. That's personally what I do. So when I'm working on something like this, I do as much as I possibly can, and then I move it to my in progress and waiting list. And then, if months and months go by and I'm not actually working on it, I could technically move it to the finished section of my projects list. I store mine digitally so I can have a nice collection of finished projects. But this is something where you might not finish it in a fast amount of time, and that's okay. And so after you've written out your mind sweep, then it's time to map out the essentials. What kind of things must be checked daily or every few days? For me, I have that down to my email, personal and work emails, my text, I try to check daily. Slack, it's what we use for work messages. We have a family group chat in Facebook Messenger, and our family lives really far away from all the rest of our extended family. So we share occasional updates and pictures, and that's just how we've chosen to stay in touch. And sometimes Facebook notifications need to be checked daily for me because I'm in a lot of our Step and Learn to Become groups. And so when people have specific questions for us, or when I get notified about something, I might need to quickly answer a couple messages during my work time. So those are the things that I need to check every single day. And again, it was nice to just have a list of all the different places I could think of, and then just pull out the ones that I need to check on a daily basis. And I feel like I have a pretty solid routine for those. And we're going to keep talking about the different step principles, but one thing I thought I could share now is when it comes to our routines, if we need to establish a brand new routine, that's actually one of our current projects, or maybe one of our next in line projects, because it takes time and effort to establish a brand new routine. So if you're currently like, I have no messages routine, I just check things haphazardly, sometimes things are open, sometimes I don't look at them, that might feel kind of overwhelming and stressful. So it might be helpful to create a project where this month you focus on checking your messages maybe twice a day, where you have focused time where you spend 10 to 20 minutes checking what came in today, handling different tasks and things that might be coming in, and people are asking you to do certain things or things that you need to check in on. And as a little sneak peek, that's what next week's podcast is going to be. I've actually already recorded it. I kind of flip-flopped these podcasts, but I took you through my end of the day routine of checking all of my texts and emails and my capture tool and how I extract the tasks from those. So I'll share more about my routine next week if you're interested. But again, if you don't have any routine for checking your emails or checking your texts that have just come in that day, that might be something that you want to work on this month or next month or sometime soon to really establish that solid routine, so that way your messages are getting handled in a timely manner. And then of course, we all have backlog when it comes to texts and emails and different things. So those are other future projects to handle the backlog. We're not trying to answer every single text and every single email from our present lives into the past. We're just focusing on what's going on right now. How can I establish a really good routine going forward? And then I can always get to the backlog as appropriate. So that was my little side thing about routines, but going along with those essentials of things that I check every single day. Then I have things that could be checked weekly. For me, I have an app called GroupMe. It's just a group chat where we have a couple friend things in there where they plan get-togethers or different things for some of the parts of the community that I'm in. I also have a WhatsApp group chat for our extended family, and I kind of tend to check those as appropriate, but it's not usually a ton of urgent things, so it's something I could check weekly and just be aware of. And then I also get a few direct messages on Instagram, usually from siblings who are sharing a funny video or something like that. But I'm trying to reduce my social media usage, so I think checking that weekly is not a bad idea at all. And then finally, what can be checked as needed? So daily, weekly, and as needed. Those are kind of my 3 personal categories, but you could customize those for yourself and your situation. And that's just any remaining apps that are not essential, but I would like to have them available. So I have a few apps that are just kind of random, and I think like Be Real is one of them. And I used to be friends with a bunch of people on there where you post your daily picture and see what everyone else is up to. But I just found that all the notifications from friends and things were too much for me. So now I still use the app, but I don't use it for checking in with friends. I just use it for keeping track of my own personal memories. So there's kind of things like that where you might say, I have an app or I have a social media account that I really don't want all of the notifications. I don't want to have to be like checking in with other people or being responsible for answering a bunch of messages. You might choose to pare that down a little bit and really decide what apps are serving you most. And if there are any apps or social media sites that are totally draining you, or that might be really big time wasters, things like that, that might be some good time for self-reflection and just deciding if that's actually a digital resource that you want to keep in your life, or if it might need to be something that you cut out or really minimize in order to give yourself more time back, more energy, or whatever that might be. Then you can create, as I said, a new or upcoming current projects to handle the backlog. So as you're going through lots of messages, and if you're feeling discouraged that there's just so many unread messages or unread things that have to-do tasks in them, don't stress yourself out about that. You can know that you'll be able to process those as you work through the backlog, but those are projects. It's not a one and done thing that you can sit down and fully check off your list in 10 to 20 minutes. Other things, like I previously mentioned, can you delete any accounts related to apps? Do you have old social media accounts that you're not using? I had 3 extra Instagram accounts that I had used at different periods of high school and college for various things, and I just decided to fully shut them down and only keep my main one because I didn't want to have random accounts floating out there that could be hacked or that I might forget about. So I just said, I'm just going to delete them, and it's a lot easier that way to just have one thing to keep track of. And then, are there any social media apps that you could totally delete if you feel like they're really negatively impacting your life? And one thing that I've personally done is I've deleted social media apps off of my phone, but I still am able to access them on my computer when appropriate. But that way, if I'm about to try scrolling or if I'm going to go check something, I have to very intentionally get my computer, open it, get the website, and then sit there and use my big computer. And I feel like that's really helping me with my phone usage because I'm not just sitting there scrolling. It has to be a very conscious effort and decision to get on social media. So that's one of the ways that I'm reducing my digital consumption and getting a lot of that streamlined. And then another note that I have here is, are you getting emails in multiple locations and do you need to streamline things? As a little example, when my husband and I were first married, I had obviously told him about STEP, and we used STEP principles for planning our whole wedding and delegating different projects to one another. So we were on a great same page organization-wise, but there were a few things that we hadn't quite streamlined in his life, and I didn't ever want to pressure him, but I said, we're getting married, and I love to be super organized, and I'm not going to force you to be organized, but if you ever want to do things the way that I'm doing, I'm more than happy to teach you. And at first, when we talked about his emails, he was very like, I'm fine. I like it the way it is. I don't want to change it. And I wasn't going to push it. But I could tell that his emails were stressing him out a bit because I think he had 5 or 6 email accounts that he was using. One of them was from high school. One of them was his main one. He had a college one. He had a work one. There was just so many email accounts that he was having to check in on. And the inboxes were pretty full of emails that he had read but hadn't acted upon, and there were still things outstanding that he wanted to do in relation to the emails. And I kept politely saying, hey, if your emails are ever stressing you out, I'd be more than happy to show you what to do if you want to have a little more peace of mind when it comes to emails. And by the way, I will link our free email training where we teach you how to get your inbox to 0 and how to file away emails so that you can find them later, how you can really take action on the emails that come in each day and not have a big full email inbox. So that is one of the resources that I love, and I will link that. But anyways, I was able to help my husband eventually. He said, actually, yeah, it would be nice to not have that email stress. And we worked together for several hours over the space of a few days, and were able to consolidate his email inboxes into just 2 email accounts. and there's ways that you can forward different email accounts to go to another address, and it was super nice to just get everything in 2 places instead of 5 or 6 places. So if that's something that might be helpful to you. I know I personally love to keep business and personal separate. I do not like to have any combination of work and personal. So I do choose to have those 2 things very separate, but I know that other people might like to have things, in similar places, or if they have multiple personal accounts that they use for things, to have all of that go to one place. You might consider Googling how to forward different email accounts to a certain address and see if that could streamline things for you. And then another thing that I wrote down here in my notes is, are any of your work communications coming in by text versus a different work app? So before we used Slack is what we use just for work messaging. I would occasionally be texting my mom questions about work things. I would occasionally text our team members, and I would try to make group chats and stuff. And then I was super excited once we used Slack, because that was a nice hard boundary for work communication goes there, and then anything personal can be by text and any other emails or whatever we need to do, like personal emails. So I was really grateful that we were able to have a fully separate location for all work communication, because obviously we're not doing a ton of messaging back and forth. We just all kind of work independently, which is nice. But I know that for some people, there might be a big lack of boundary where it comes to maybe your boss is texting you certain things all the time, or coworkers, and it might feel like there's not a very good break between work and personal life. So if there is a way that you could politely set up a boundary, or even just mute their text coming in or something like that, or even with emails, I think figuring out how you can reduce any stress that comes your way when you're off the clock or when you're not responsible for certain work things. If there are a lot of messages coming in, maybe you could make that a project to figure out how to create that boundary and protect your personal versus work time. And I know that's not possible for every single field, but where it is possible, I think it doesn't hurt to try. Another thing that I have here is, are you forgetting to check on an app or a different website that relates to your child's school class? I personally don't have this in my life, but I know that many parents have different apps or digital communication that teachers will do to send information home about their students or projects or upcoming events and things like that. So maybe there's a way that you could set a routine on your calendar or something like that to go and check that communication, so that way you can stay in the loop with what's going on at your child's school, or if they're in an extracurricular activity or something like that. Maybe they have a group chat or some kind of app where you can check in on things like that. So that was something that came to my mind as I was planning out this podcast. And again, setting a calendar reminder to do a routine is so helpful. I typically try to only have calendar reminders in my calendar for routines that get forgotten about quite frequently. I don't put a routine in my calendar, for example, like brushing my teeth or making dinner, because those are autopilot right now. But any routines that are not on autopilot and things that just get forgotten about all the time, like checking in on a certain app for information, or if you're in charge of being the one who's sending certain texts or sending certain reminders, it might be helpful to have a calendar reminder if any of those things are forgotten about. And then again, I just want to emphasize that this process of streamlining your digital inputs will be customized for everyone. But using the basics of the step principles that we've talked about can work for any situation, big or small. Calendar reminders can work big or small. Having a project to consolidate email inboxes, that can work, whether you're running a big business, or if you're helping manage things for an elderly parent, or if you're helping with things for like a volunteer opportunity. There's so many things that all of us are doing, and we all have different passion projects we're working on, or we're doing volunteer work, or different things professionally. And I just love knowing that it is totally possible to create this sense of peace and calm when it comes to our digital inboxes, because there are going to be days, and there are still days for me, where I open up my email inbox and think, all right, this is a doozy. This is not going to be fun to answer this one, or figure out this issue, or handle this response to this person. personal and business wise. It's just part of life, right? But I think knowing that I have a good handle on all the different digital inputs that are coming my way helps me have a lot more peace of mind. And you'll see this more next week in the podcast, where I show you my whole routine that I do at the end of the day, where it only takes me 10 to 15 minutes to process all of the digital input that I've gotten from my day. And that's excluding work emails, because work time is usually a little bit longer, but that's set aside from, totally separate from my end of the day personal routine. But I just love knowing that because I have followed the same process that I've outlined here, that I've done a mind sweep, I've created projects and routines to help support me. And I know that if I have future digital input that comes in, whether it's messages or apps or lots of notifications, that I can figure out how to best incorporate those into my current system. And if it does become a problem, then I know that I have the tools to figure out what to do with them. And just want to encourage you that if you're feeling a little overwhelmed right now by all the technology and all the digital stuff that's going on, that we're cheering you on here at Learn to Become, and we're excited for you and hope that you'll find ways to implement a few of the principles that we've shared, even if it's just as simple as figuring out your daily routine, what that looks like for you, figuring out how you could at least respond to as many of the messages that came in that day as possible, or whatever time frame makes the most sense for you. Obviously, not every message needs a full response and deserves our time, but I think that figuring out what's best for you and what makes you feel peaceful and not overwhelmed that's just the best feeling. Once you can make it a custom system that makes you feel happy and you feel like you've got a good handle on the things that are coming your way. So anyways, thank you so much for joining us today. And again, if you'd like to leave a comment about anything that stood out to you or anything that you would add to this process or that you've done personally, I'd love to hear from you at learntobecome.com/episode 311. And there will be some show notes there and some extra resources linked. But if you'd like to learn more about our STEP program and just go there directly, you can always do that at learntobecome.com/STEP program. So have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for joining us here at Learn to Become Radio.